Let me tell you something from the heart. I've walked this road, I've stood at the altar twice, and once again when I was well past 60. I've learned a few things, not just from my successes, but mostly from my stumbles. If you're over 60 and thinking about getting married again, slow down a minute. I know the feeling. That warmth of companionship, that longing not to feel so alone when the sun goes down and the nights grow longer. But before you say "I do" again, there are 5 truths you must know. Not should, must. And I'm not sharing these to scare you. I'm sharing them because I care. Because I wish someone had looked me in the eyes and told me these things straight, with no fluff, no sweet sugarcoating. First, loneliness is not a reason to marry. I know how it feels. You lose your spouse to death or divorce, and suddenly the house is quiet in a way that aches. Mornings used to begin with coffee and laughter, and now it's just you in the silence. And you start to believe that anyone is better than no one. But that's a dangerous lie. Loneliness is like hunger. If you don't recognize it for what it is, you'll settle for fast food when what you really need is something nourishing. Don't rush into marriage just to plug a hole in your heart. That hole needs healing, not hiding. You need to get comfortable being with yourself before you can truly be with someone else. Otherwise, you're not choosing love. You're choosing escape. And trust me, the cost of escaping the wrong way gets heavier with age. Second, you're not the same person you were in your 30s or 40s. And neither is the person you're considering marrying. By the time you hit 60, you've got decades of living behind you. You've got routines, habits, ways of doing things that are as set as old oak trees. And so does your partner. When you're young, you bend easily, you adjust. But in your 60s, compromise isn't just a cute word. It's a hard-earned skill. Something as simple as what time you eat dinner or how you spend your Sundays can become battlegrounds if you're not both willing to give a little. I thought I could just jump back into a rhythm with someone, but I had to learn her rhythm first, and she had to learn mine. That takes time, it takes patience, and it takes humility. If you're not ready to let go of being right all the time, marriage at this age will chew you up and spit you out. Third, and this one is tough, money changes everything. I'm not talking about being greedy, I'm talking about reality. By 60, you've built something, a pension, a house, maybe some savings. Maybe you're still working, or maybe you're just coasting into retirement. But wherever you are, your money story matters, and so does theirs. When I remarried, we didn't talk enough about money. Who was paying for what? What would happen if one of us got sick? What about our kids from our first marriages? Who gets what when we're gone? These conversations aren't romantic. They're uncomfortable, but they're necessary. I've seen love turn sour over a will. I've seen couples torn apart because they didn't talk about what happens when one of them needs a nursing home. Love is not enough if it's built on financial confusion. Get clear, get honest, get it in writing if you have to, because protecting your heart also means protecting your future. Fourth, your children may not be as happy for you as you hope. Now, I'm not saying your kids are selfish or unkind. Most of them just don't know how to handle the idea of you moving on, especially if you were married to their other parent for a long time. I've had friends whose grown kids suddenly turned cold, suspicious, or distant when they found out dad was marrying someone new. And sometimes those kids are right to be cautious. There are people out there who marry for the wrong reasons, but sometimes they're just scared of losing you, of losing their place in your life. So what do? You talk to them. Early, often, you listen without judgment. You don't need their permission, but you do need their understanding. And you can't get that if you shut them out or spring it on them like a surprise party. One man I know lost touch with his daughter for 3 years because he didn't think it mattered how she felt. That's not worth it. If you love someone new and you love your children, there is a way to bring those worlds together. But it takes work, and it takes time. Fifth, and this one is the hardest truth of all, marriage won't save you from getting old. I know that sounds blunt, but I wish someone had told me this when I was dreaming of a fresh start. You can be 65 and in love and still wake up with aching joints and forget where you put your glasses. Your spouse will age too, and that means health issues, doctor visits, maybe surgeries, maybe memory loss. And if you're not prepared to walk through those valleys together, then don't start the journey. Because marriage after 60 is not about chasing youth. It's about finding peace. It's about holding someone's hand when the lights go dim and the road gets rough. It's about choosing to stay even when things are far from perfect. It's not glamorous, but it is beautiful, if you're both ready. Now you might be thinking, that sounds heavy, and it is. But I'm not here to scare you away from love. Far from it. Love after 60 can be the most honest, freeing kind of love there is, because you've got nothing to prove. You're not building a life from scratch. You're adding to what's already there. And if you do it right, it can bring warmth into the coldest corners of your life. I've seen it happen. I've lived it. But only when people take off the rose-colored glasses and see each other for who they truly are, with all the wrinkles, the history, the fears, and the flaws. So before you say, I do again, ask yourself, am I marrying out of love or out of fear? Have we talked about the things that matter? Are we willing to grow together, not just grow old? Are we clear on what we expect, what we need, and what we're willing to give? And have we really taken the time to listen to each other? Because if the answers to those questions are yes, then you're not just chasing a new chapter. You're writing a wiser one. And let me say one last thing. There's no shame in wanting love again. In fact, it's one of the most courageous things you can do. Opening your heart after loss or betrayal, that takes guts. But courage without wisdom is just recklessness. So take your time, trust your gut, and don't ignore the hard stuff, because that's where the real truth lives. I've seen too many friends rush back into marriage because they missed being touched, missed being seen, missed being needed. And I get it. But marriage is not just about fixing loneliness. It's about building something sturdy, something that lasts, even if the clock is ticking, especially because the clock is ticking. So if you're over 60 and thinking of remarrying, don't do it until you face these 5 truths. Not to scare you off, but to prepare you. Because love in your later years isn't about fireworks. It's about campfires. Quiet, steady, warm. And if you tend to it with honesty and care, it will keep you going long after the sparks fade. Just make sure you're not starting the fire with wet wood, because no matter how old you are, a second or third marriage can still be the best one. But only if it's real, only if it's built on truth. Now let's clear some common questions. Have we lived together long enough or spent enough time to truly understand how we function in day-to-day life? That is a fine question, one that cuts deeper than most would care to admit. Have we lived together long enough or spent enough time to truly understand how we function in day-to-day life? It sounds simple, direct even, but there's weight behind it. It speaks not only of time past, but of the essence of being seen, truly seen. And I'll tell you this from the heart of an old man who has lived a life both long and full of love, failure, joy, misunderstanding, reconciliation, and all the spaces in between. Time alone does not guarantee understanding, not by a long shot. You see, I've known couples who've lived together for 10, 15, 20 years, shared the same bed, ate off the same plates, walked the same dog, raised children who now have kids of their own. And yet, when the quiet moments came, those moments when you're sitting on the porch just watching the wind roll through the trees, they looked at each other like strangers, like travelers who had boarded the same train, but with no idea where the other came from or was going. They mistook proximity for intimacy. They thought shared space meant shared understanding. But the truth is, you can live a whole life alongside someone and never really learn how they carry their fears, how they process grief, how they celebrate inside when something good finally happens. It takes more than time. It takes intention. I remember when I first lived with my wife. That first year was not the honeymoon they promised us in books or films. No, sir, it was messy. Not just the socks on the floor or the toothpaste left open. It was the realization that love alone doesn't teach you how someone thinks. It doesn't explain why she would cry while doing the dishes some nights, or why I would get quiet and distant after talking to my brother. Those things take curiosity. You have to ask, and not once. You have to ask again and again, with kindness and no judgment, even when the answers are half-formed and hard to say out loud. Living together is a classroom, yes, but only if you show up ready to learn. And learning, my friend, means listening. I don't mean just hearing words. I mean listening to the silence between them, The way someone avoids eye contact when they're overwhelmed. The way they rearrange the living room not just for comfort, but because it gives them a sense of control when life feels too chaotic. These are the invisible things. And you don't see them just because the calendar says it's been 2 years or 5. You see them because you're looking. And you're looking because you care enough to understand, not just exist beside them. Now let me tell you this. Time does matter. It does. But only as a foundation. It gives you chances. Time gives you mornings when you wake up grumpy and still get kissed on the forehead. It gives you late-night talks after a fight that neither of you wanted but both needed. It gives you lazy Sundays and hectic Wednesdays and the full spectrum of living. But those chances, they mean nothing if you keep living the same day over and over without growth, without openness. I've watched people spend a decade avoiding each other in plain sight, like emotional ghosts. And I've seen others, new to love, just a year in, with such deep awareness of each other's rhythms that you'd swear they were born into it. It's not how long you've lived together. It's how deep you've dared to go. And going deep means being willing to be uncomfortable. It means being okay with not having all the answers, but still asking the questions. I remember one night, maybe 10 years into our marriage, my wife looked at me and said, "I think I'm just now beginning to understand you." And I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was true. I was still learning her too, still discovering things I hadn't noticed before. A new way she laughed when she was really relaxed. The way she looked out the window when she missed her father. We had lived 1,000 days side by then, but those little revelations still arrived like unexpected gifts, and they always will if you keep your heart open. Now you ask if you've lived together long enough, and I'd say that's the wrong question. The real question is, have you seen each other? Have you shared not just your days, but your doubts, your dreams, your disappointments? Have you watched each other fail and offered not advice, but presence? That's what tells you how well you understand each other. Time can help. Yes, but it can also become a veil if you're not careful. A blanket that hides the fact that you've stopped looking, that you've accepted surface-level routines as substitutes for real connection. So here's what I'll say to you as someone who has been on both sides of that question. If you're still wondering whether you truly understand how the other functions in daily life, don't be discouraged. The fact that you're asking means you care. It means you're still in the process. And that's a beautiful thing, because understanding is not a destination. It's a practice, a daily choice, a commitment to curiosity and compassion. Some days you'll get it right. Other days you'll trip over each other's needs and walk away frustrated. But if you come back, if you keep coming back with humility and love, then yes, you are understanding each other. Slowly, truly. You don't need to have all the answers. No one does. Not even the old and wrinkled like me. But you need to keep asking the questions. Keep choosing each other, especially in the small things. That's where real life happens. Not in the grand gestures, but in the way you pass each other the salt, in the way you sit in silence when words won't come, in the way you forgive quickly and celebrate freely. If you're doing that, you're already further along than you think. So have you lived together long enough? Maybe. Maybe not. But if you are paying attention, if you are still willing to discover new things about each other and not pretend that familiarity means you've reached the end of knowing, then yes, you are living, truly living together. And that is what makes all the difference. How will we handle medical decisions, caregiving responsibilities, and end-of-life planning, both legally and emotionally? Now that is a question most folks don't want to face until it's staring them dead in the eye. How will we handle medical decisions, caregiving responsibilities, and end-of-life planning, both legally and emotionally? That's not small talk. That's the kind of question that settles in your chest and I ask you to sit with it a while. I've lived a long time, long enough to know that pretending these things will sort themselves out is the quickest way to find yourself lost in a storm with no compass. I've buried people I loved. I've held the hands of friends when they couldn't speak for themselves. I've sat in hospital rooms listening to the beep of machines and the silence of unsaid words. And I'll tell you right now, planning ahead may not take away the pain, but it sure as hell softens the confusion. It gives your heart a little more room to breathe when the weight gets heavy. Let me start with the legal part. It sounds cold, I know, but it's the bedrock. Without it, your wishes and your dignity can get tossed around like a paper boat in a flood. You need to talk about things like power of attorney and living wills. I remember the day my wife and I sat down with a lawyer and wrote ours. It was uncomfortable, sure. Neither of us wanted to picture the other in a hospital bed, unable to speak. But we loved each other enough to do it, to give each other that clarity, that peace of mind. I named her as my healthcare proxy, and she named me. We went through questions like, would you want life support? For how long? What about pain management if you can't decide for yourself? These are not easy things. But I'll tell you what's harder. Being in a hospital waiting room with a doctor asking what to do next and no legal right to answer. No written wishes, just fear and guesses. Now the legal stuff is only half of it. The emotional side, that's where the real weight lives. Caregiving is no small task. It's not just medication schedules and doctor appointments. It's wiping tears. It's feeding someone who can no longer hold a spoon. It's watching someone you love fade and knowing there is nothing you can do but be present. I've done it, and I've watched others walk that road too. It's a sacred kind of heartbreak, and it is damn near impossible if you haven't talked about it before the crisis hits. You need to know what each of you can handle, who can step in, whether it's one of you doing the heavy lifting or if you'll lean on others. Friends, family, paid professionals. Don't be a hero for the sake of pride. Burnout sneaks in fast when love is your only fuel and logistics are ignored. I remember when my best friend Henry was caring for his wife in her last years. Dementia had taken her mind, but her body stayed strong. He bathed her, fed her, talked to her even when she didn't know his name, and one day he broke down. Not because he didn't love her, Lord, he did, but because no one had talked to him about how hard it would be, about the toll. He had no plan, no help, no break, just quiet suffering. And when she passed, he felt relief and guilt in the same breath. That should not be the legacy of love. So talk. Decide together what kind of help you're willing to accept, what boundaries you need, what matters most when the body starts to give out. Because it will, eventually. And let's talk about end-of-life planning. Death is not the enemy. It's the one thing we all share. Pretending it won't come does not make us brave. It makes us unprepared. I've seen families torn apart over funeral choices, over estates, over who thought what they would have wanted. You can save everyone a world of pain by putting it in writing, not just the legal documents, but the human parts too. Do you want to be buried or cremated? Do you want a celebration or something quiet? Is there a song you want played? A letter you want read? Speak those things now. Write them down. Let the people you love know where to find them. I'll never forget when my wife passed. She had written a letter, just a simple one, left in the top drawer with her will. She wrote about her love for us, her gratitude. She asked for tulips at her service and a certain old gospel song to be played. That letter was a gift. In the middle of grief, it felt like she was still with us, still guiding us, still making sure we were okay. And that's the kind of care you can offer even after you're gone. It doesn't take much. Just courage, just honesty. Now, none of this is easy. You will cry. You will argue. You might walk away from the conversation once or twice because it feels too real. But keep coming back. These talks are acts of love. They say, I want to carry your heart with care, even when you cannot carry mine. They say, I trust you enough to be vulnerable, to let you see my fears. And let me tell you, that's a powerful kind of love. Stronger than flowers and chocolates. Deeper than promises made in easier times. And here's something else I'll say. Things change. What you want at 40 might not be what you want at 70. So revisit these plans. Don't let them collect dust in a drawer. Check in with each other. Ask again. Still feel the same way about resuscitation? Still want your brother to handle the estate? Still want that gospel song, or have you changed your tune? Keep the lines open. Life keeps shifting, and your plans should grow with it. So, my dear friend, the answer to that big question, how will we handle all this? Legally, emotionally, honestly, tenderly, You handle it by talking early and talking often, by writing things down, by leaning on each other, by refusing to let fear make decisions for you. These conversations are not signs of doom. They are signs of deep care. They are how you say, "I will not leave you in the dark." They are how you make sure love carries through even when the body falters and the voice grows quiet. In the end, the greatest gift you can give to the ones you love is clarity in the chaos, a path through the unknown, a steady hand when the world tilts. And that, my friend, starts with one brave conversation, one, then another, until the future feels less like a threat and more like something you've already walked together, side by side, as it should be. When I imagine the final chapters of my life, is this the person I trust to walk beside me through all of it? Not just the good moments, but the hard ones too? Now that's a question that carries the weight of a lifetime. When I imagine the final chapters of my life, is this the person I trust to walk beside me through all of it? Not just the good moments, but the hard ones too? That's not something you answer with a smile and a quick yes just because the days are sunny and the laughter comes easy. That's a question you feel in your bones. It digs into the quiet places. The ones where you ask yourself, who do I become when everything starts to slip? And more importantly, who will be there holding my hand when it does? I've been blessed to live a long life, longer than most expected, especially with the way I used to drive and drink my whiskey a little too often. But time has a way of teaching you what matters. I've watched many people fall in love with the good moments, the kind where everything feels possible: vacations, candlelit dinners, easy laughter over Sunday morning pancakes. And sure, those moments are beautiful. They are the highlights. But they are not the whole book. Life has chapters that are hard to read: illness, loss, disappointment, the slow, creeping ache of aging. And in those moments when your hands tremble and your memory flickers, you need more than love. You need someone who knows how to stay. When I met my wife, I thought I knew what love meant. I thought it was all about how you feel when you're around someone. Butterflies, excitement, all that stuff they write songs about. And for a while, that was enough. We danced in kitchens and argued about nothing. We kissed in the rain and made up like teenagers. But then life came along with its own plans. She got sick one year, a kind of sickness that doesn't go away with soup and rest. And suddenly, I wasn't her partner in just joy. I was her nurse, her comfort, her anchor. And let me tell you something. That's when I truly fell in love. Not with the idea of her, not with what she gave me, but with the quiet courage she carried, the strength she showed when her body betrayed her, and the way we kept showing up for each other, even when it wasn't pretty. That's what you're really asking, isn't it? When the lights dim, when the audience goes home, when the music stops, is this the person who will still sit beside me, even if I cannot dance anymore? Is this the one who will not look away when I am weak? And even more than that, will I do the same for them? Because trust isn't just about receiving care. It's about giving it, fully, without resentment or regret, even when it costs you sleep and freedom, even when it hurts. I've seen too many folks make promises they couldn't keep because they never looked this far ahead. They thought love was all fire and thrill. But love, real love, is also made of grit, of grace, of steady hands wiping away tears and holding on through storms. My neighbor once told me, back when his wife was dying of cancer, "This is the hardest thing I've ever done, but it's also the most important." He said those words with tears in his eyes and her hand in his. That's what it means to walk beside someone to the end. You don't run when it gets heavy. You don't hide. You stay. You stay because somewhere along the line, you decided that your life would be incomplete without seeing this thing through. All of it. When I imagine the final chapters of life, I think about the silence, the kind that comes when the kids are grown, when the phone doesn't ring as much, when the steps are slower and the days are a little lonelier. And I picture someone beside me who understands without words, who knows that some days I might not say much, but still needs me near. I picture someone who still laughs at my old jokes, even if they've heard them 100 times. Someone who can look at my face and know when I'm worried before I even say a word. That's not built overnight. That kind of trust takes years of being there for each other in the quiet, forgotten moments. Not just when everything is bright and full. And yes, I've also seen what it looks like when the answer to that question is no. When people stay out of habit or fear. When love fades and all that's left is resentment or obligation. That's not the kind of companionship you want in the end. You want someone who chooses you. Not out of duty, but out of love that has been tested and proven over time. Someone who sees the wrinkles and the worries and says, "I'm still here," and means it with everything they've got. So when you ask yourself that question, don't answer too quickly. Sit with it. Picture the hard days, the sick days, the days when you might not recognize yourself in the mirror. Can you see them there, holding your hand, not out of pity, but out of deep, unwavering respect and love? Can you imagine trusting them with your pain, your fear, your final wishes? And just as importantly, can you picture yourself doing the same for them? Love is a choice, every single day. And choosing someone to walk with you through the final chapters is one of the most sacred choices you'll ever make. It's not glamorous, it won't win awards, but it will define the legacy of your life. It will be the thing that matters when everything else fades. Now, I'm just an old man with more stories than time, but if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. You don't get to choose how your story ends, but you can choose who you want beside you when the last pages are turning. So choose wisely. Choose someone who brings peace to your chaos, who knows how to stay when it's easier to run, who listens not just to your words, but to the silences in between. And if you found that person, hold them close. Walk together. Face the unknown not with fear, but with the comfort of knowing that, come what may, you will not be alone. That, my friend, is the truest kind of love there is. If you like today's discussion, don't forget to like the video, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to stay updated with every video we release. And yes, don't forget to share your experiences and thoughts in the comments. Every comment is special to us. Your feedback helps us improve further. We'll continue to meet you in every new video on this channel. So until next time, take care.